of a sudden, his phone rang. His girlfriend killed herself tonight. Huh? Is that a coincidence? No, because the same girl who I came downtown to see was dead too. That's because they're the same person. They're both dead. I couldn't believe that.
Crap. Mega crap.
I couldn't stop long enough to tell her goodbye that I was sorry.
I'm going through. I just can't smile without you.
Your thoughts?
I don't know. They're trajectory headings for multiple impact re-entry vehicles.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but it's great.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Hey, how are you?
Welcome back.
We'd like to thank you for joining us once again for your
been a while.
bi-monthly installment of
Yes.
These Two Schmoes
Isn't it,
Saw in
though?
the Theater. I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.
You were saying?
I was going to jump in and say our intro reminded me of a loss that we had recently.
Yes.
With Gene Wilder. Very sad. So, one of those guys that, he's been in some great movies, and we all can list them off, the Silver Streaks and the Blazing Saddles and all of those. But surprised me, similar to my reaction when Robin Williams died, in that I didn't really think that he meant as much to me as he really ended up meaning once we lost him. And also the huge list of work that he did. Just some terrific work. So it's unfortunate that we lost Gene Wilder this time.
But the films will live on.
Absolutely.
And they do, regularly.
Oh, yeah.
And this new digital world we live in, cinematically speaking, exhibition-wise, a lot of theaters were very quickly able to say, that's a shame he died. Blazing Saddles tomorrow night.
Right, yeah.
Or, in tribute to him, we're going to run Willy Wonka and Stir Crazy next week.
Right, yeah.
It's so much easier to do than it used to be, so that's kind of cool. So people can grieve through laughter, laugh through the tears, or cry through the laughs. It's funny, the clip was See No Evil, Hear No Evil, which is a film that doesn't get much accolades.
Most people don't. I love it.
I think it's really funny.
I think it's hilarious.
And it wasn't hilarious to everybody on the night, but I went to a all-night horror show at a drive-in, and they were supposed to be playing the Mia Farrow film from the early 70s, See No Evil, which is a good thriller, very similar to something we're talking about later today. And instead, Sony sent them the wrong print
Really?
and unspooled See No Evil, Hear No Evil. And funny enough, most of the audience didn't mind.
Right,
Afterwards, everybody was like, that movie was really funny. You ought to show more stuff like that. So it was actually really good to see that
Funny
again.
and super clever. That's what.
It's a funny
We talk
movie.
about that a lot, and you don't see stuff that clever anymore.
I think the only one of the Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor pairings I never saw was Another You, which by all accounts is not very good.
I saw that in
because
theaters, but I haven't.
Pryor was pretty sick by the time they made that.
Right.
But all the rest, Silver Streak, Stir Crazy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, it's kind of hard to go wrong with any of those. That'd be actually a really good triple feature for some enterprising theater to put together. Speaking of movies, have you seen any lately?
I've seen about 11 of them. How about you?
Honestly, I saw 13 this weekend. About 4 of which we'll talk about here.
Okay.
May I?
Should. Please
Okay.
do.
Let me introduce a film. I have no idea what it's about. So, your favorite, formerly frumpy and now romantically successful British lady and lass and or matronly woman is back once again with the latest installment of her life in her romance and domesticity. And this time, we are talking about Bridget Jones's Baby.
Ice cold Coca-Cola
It's been a
for
while.
everybody at the
never saw
refreshment
it.
counter now.
So we're just going over some grammatical issues.
I got that much smarter, which means
I
I'm
was
not
an
smart.
English major, so
So I did not have the ability to see this.
Okay.
Let's say I had the ability to see this, but chose to focus on other things for this very program. So
fair enough.
I have not seen any.
We tag team.
Well, we do, and I
Right?
actually, I'm going to let you in. I almost contacted you yesterday and asked which of these do you not want to see, because I'll go see those two, and at least we'll have seen everything.
Okay.
I never saw the previous Bridget Jones films.
Right.
So
I didn't see the second one.
So how does this play for somebody who is not familiar with the Bridget Jones cinematic legacy?
And this is not a negative comment, but it's a very basic standard story. This is a woman who's entering into her 40s. She's dealing with the frustrations of her professional life, and she doesn't have a man in her life, and this isn't sexist or anything. It's about you're getting older, you don't have anybody to live life alongside you, you don't have a kid, and so that's this push for her. So I think coming right into it, there are some, and I remember enough of the first one that there's some little allusions that are kind of fun if you're a big fan of the Bridget Jones's Diary. And again, I forget the name of the second one. But this one comes along and is very straightforward. I think if you are a fan of either Zellweger, Jim Broadbent is in it, and he's wonderful, or just, kind of British comedies, I think you're going to enjoy this. I don't think, as you say, you need to know anything in the backstory of it. I'm so used to her in other roles that for some reason I had a difficult time getting around the accent. And normally I love British comedies. And for some reason, I don't know if it was just a bad day that I went to the theater, it just kind of struck me as kind of off-putting. I don't know why. And so in thinking back on it, I have to just kind of disallow that and compare this to the other ones. I think it's funny. Most of the humor is clever dialogue, which is unusual. We're just talking about clever things that we don't really see a whole lot anymore. And in particular, so if you like clever dialogue-driven comedies or you're a big fan of Bridget Jones's Diary, I think you're going to like this one.
It's funny. Maybe it's the older I get. Sometimes I'll watch a film with an American pretending to be British,
right,
and I'll be like, why are you talking that way? You don't talk that way. Everybody knows you don't talk that way. Who are you trying to fool? That used to be less of an issue for me, but even in those clips, I'm like, well, she's faking it.
Right.
And yes, she's an actress, and that's what people do. But sometimes that just occurs to me. I'm just like, Kevin Costner's not British. You're not going to fool me into thinking he is.
Right.
Just cast a British guy. So, speaking of females,
yes,
you also saw the next film.
We lost years ago. We lost a female. Oh, we are over here. Good. We lost a female searching around in the woods, making a little documentary, and her brother finds some new material and decides we better go take a look because all of these people may be the unwitting subjects of the Blair Witch. Okay. So this is supposedly a remake. I'm not a remake. It is a remake, actually. So I just tipped my hand.
It's a C-make.
Supposedly,
it's a requel.
Right, a sequel or a requel or whatever. But the story is, if you remember the original Blair Witch, this girl goes out with her crew and shooting a documentary, and they all disappear. Well, the girl's brother is contacted by somebody, and because he sees this footage on YouTube, he has this search program that searches YouTube for Blair Witch.
Does he videotape himself looking at YouTube for some reason?
Somebody else videotapes him. His girlfriend videotapes him for a project, of course.
Oh, sure.
So he decides, I got to go find out if this is the case because reportedly somebody found some footage of my sister who has disappeared. So maybe she's still alive after 20 years.
Yeah, maybe.
So they go out and the exact same things happen. How they found the footage, so it's all... And one of the things that I think when we talked about Blair Witch or other films like this is, in as much as we know about the technology, I'm always thinking, how long are those batteries going to last? How'd they get that camera there?
For me, it's like, why are they not dropping the camera and running?
Right, exactly. Why are they? And so they answer a lot of those questions. So as I'm getting super picky, they have these little earphone things that go around, and it's a camera, and so it shoots what they see. Now, strangely enough, my younger son leaned over and said, if the camera's right there, wouldn't it photograph in parallax? So wouldn't they not be looking right at the camera? I say, you're right. So that was clever, both of my son. And this one, if there's anything good I can say about this, it's that they try to answer these technological questions to put us at ease. Now, the basic thing is it's a complete remake, and here's... I'm going to reenact a scene, the typical scene from the Blair Witch.
You need a little help there?
Yeah, give me a nice close-up. If you can cut to my camera. There we go. Okay. So here it is. Mark, did you hear anything? Ah, loud noise! And then they scream and yell. That's the whole thing.
Guys in the booth are
it's
thanking
this
you for
shot,
that at this point.
And horrible noises go off, and they scream, and they go running, and we don't know what they're running from, and we don't know why they're yelling, and it just makes absolutely no sense. And so it's just completely pointless. So I was really disappointed in this.
Yeah.
This Sausage Party still at the top of my #1 worst movies of the year list, or at least most disappointing. There was something else that we talked about recently that I can't remember was number 2, but this has a hard and fast number 3 worst movie of the year.
It's not a hard number 2,
No,
so to speak.
So to speak. Oh, I get it. But yeah, so I gave this a 1 out of 10 because there were some clever moments in it, and performances actually. Some of the leads are okay, but boy, if you're a thinking person out there that wants to see something smart and isn't just stupid shaky cam sound effects, run screaming from the Blair Witch. It was just awful.
Yeah, I was curious about seeing this.
Yeah.
But then when I heard it was shaky cam, when I heard it was found footage, I was just like, no, I have better things to do. They always are a failure to me. The original was interesting because it was the first time we'd seen something like that. But when you think about it wasn't that great, really. It was just different, and it was able to fool people into thinking it was real. But everything that's come since then doesn't feel real. It never feels real. It feels incredibly going way out of their way to be forced into this. It feels like people are acting in front of a camcorder.
Sure.
It doesn't feel like you're capturing real people. And they're just terrible, and I hate them. And I'm shocked they still make them.
It gets back to I think they're super easy to make.
Yeah. You don't have to have any acting ability. You don't have to have any writing. You don't have to have any technical ability.
You don't have to know how to compose anything or light it properly. But this gets back to also the comment that you and I make all the time when we see these kinds of things is, if the subject is scary, and this was a potentially scary subject, just shoot it traditionally, with an objective camera, and that'll make it much more frightening. My son and I went back. He liked it. My 15-year-old, almost 16-year-old son thought this was scarier than I did. Mm-hmm. I think I was sitting there constantly being critical of it, and so I didn't get into it. He thought it was a little bit scarier, but then we went back and watched PG-13 rated 1408 with John Cusack as a paranormal investigator. Shot perfectly steady. I can't remember a shaky cam shot in that. And it's just scary as all get at because the subject matter is scary and the performances work well. So more and more I'm citing to your wisdom of, if it's shaky cam just means we don't want to take the time to do it properly.
The terror of visual incomprehensibility.
That's right. Well, we talked about on the trailer, it said one of the scariest movies of all time, and we figured the author was writing, well, I went to see this because, The Exorcist was one of the scariest movies of all time.
And they're like, oh, quick, snip that out. Scariest movies of all time.
So, pretty sad.
They haven't seen enough movies. So, speaking of terror on tour, and, we're not speaking of terror on tour. So, what you gonna do when you decide to break into the house of a disabled person to steal the only money and visible means of support they have, dirtbag? Well, if it turns out that you picked the wrong guy and that guy is far deadlier than you ever expected, you better make sure you don't breathe. I'm so glad. When I saw the trailer, I felt like that sequence that we just saw, where it's they're in the dark and it's sort of a night vision. I thought, okay, great, this is the climax of the movie. Luckily, the movie keeps going. Well, luckily or unluckily, the movie keeps going beyond that. I was afraid it gave away the big, set piece of the film, but it really didn't. So this is from the makers of the Evil Dead remake. The creative team behind that produced.
Well, and Raimi's back, like executive producer.
Yeah, Rob Tapper, the guys who did the original Evil Dead. The Ghost House Pictures is their shingle, as you call it. And so they were sort of overseeing the project. I thought this was a decent thriller. I didn't think this was great. It seemed really familiar to me. I was just sort of, it's sort of like a reverse of Wait Until Dark and See No Evil and a bunch of other movies I've seen where somebody breaks into a house and they realize they picked the wrong house to break into. But if you haven't seen all that other stuff and have that rattling around in your head like I do, it's very efficient. This movie is 80-something minutes, maybe. It does not take long to get going. The thing is, maybe at 80 minutes, it might be a little too long. It felt kind of repetitive after a while. Yeah. You say the bad guy. For the purposes of this film, the victim of a crime is the bad guy. He's like a whack-a-mole bad guy. Like, they do something to him, and then he pops back up again, and then he pops back up again. And I'm like, is this a human pincushion, or what's going on here? That got a little silly. And I'm not going to talk about the ending, but the ending, to me, seemed to indicate a tinge of being open-ended, and I'm like, really?
Right, yeah.
No, I want to see a sequel where this bad guy somehow tracks them
Turns
down
them in.
in Puerto Vallarta, and this blind guy stalks them through the city during Carnival in Rio or something and manages to stay on their trail.
Right.
But all that aside, it was well made. It was an efficient thriller. It didn't do all of the things that annoy me about modern horror. I'd call it a thriller more than horror, but it gets pretty horrific at times with where the subject matter goes. There was a jump scare early on, and I just held out a thumb, and I said, okay, we're going to count the jump scares if this is the game they're playing. But it was really like one.
Okay.
The shaky cam thing almost never happens at all. It's pretty
Right.
well shot for what it is. Most of it is a very dim setting because it's a blind guy's house. So he's not. I was actually surprised early on when they turned the lights on and there were even light bulbs in the things because
Right.
I'm like, well, what does he need the light bulb for? But so it was efficiently made. I think for teens it would work well. I think for adults it would work well. There is the questionability of are we rooting for anybody in this movie?
Right.
Because these are dirtbag thieves who are willfully robbing a blind guy whose daughter was killed in an automotive accident, and that's why
And
he
he's
has
a
money.
vet. He's an
and a veteran.
Yeah.
Eventually, something is exposed in the film that makes you not
Right.
feel sympathy for the guy, but it's pretty grimy. It gets really kind of gross at one point
Yep.
when they reveal why you might not have sympathy for this guy. It goes way farther than I thought they needed to, but otherwise, I thought it was fine, I guess.
What you said, I completely agree with it. For about the first half of this movie, and you're right that it's pretty short, it feels longer than 88, but that's not a negative comment. It keeps you going, and it sucked me into it all the way throughout the entire film. About halfway through, you refer to the fact that he's a whack-a-mole and he keeps coming back no matter what happens. I started getting real tired of that. And it was really, okay, this is going to happen, okay, and it just keeps going. I think they could have trimmed a few of those, made it less unbelievable in that respect. But then again, it's not going to have quite the intensity. I thought this was pretty intense throughout. I thought performances were pretty strong throughout. And what I enjoyed was it's a pretty smart film in that you think, okay, so they break into the place, and if he starts to really get at them, they'll just escape. Well, they do a pretty good job of making it really believably difficult for them to escape
Right.
the house they just broke into.
Logically,
and
too.
Right, and so I thought that was really clever and fun because once again, with any film, we try to put ourselves in the character's stead, and I'm thinking, what would I try to do? And they usually end up trying to do that. So it really is a pretty smart film. Lacks credulity or stretches it a bit, but for an approaching Halloween kind of a scare thriller, I thought it was really pretty good.
Speaking of scare thrillers,
Yes.
if you're somebody who ever has ridden on an airplane, this next film might fall into that category.
Could it
for
lack
part of it.
credulity? We don't know. But it's quite possible that you can speak with my mouth. It's quite possible that there we go. It shouldn't lack credulity because it really happened. One thing that's for sure is if you're on a plane and it's about to go down and lots of everybody on there, you really want to survive, you better hope that your pilot is Sully. Boom. So Clint Eastwood, 10 years ago, and I'm not saying I love Eastwood as an actor and director, and he does great stuff, but like 10 years ago, he said, that's it, whatever movie it was, that's my last movie, and he just keeps making them, which is great. I thought Hanks is one of our greatest American legend traditions. He's a wonderful actor. He brings, and that's why obviously he was cast for this role, a real pathos and believability to this man who, as he said, the majority of his life he'd been flying planes. And what surprised me about this movie, and I didn't remember this, clearly we all remember the incident, but I didn't remember if and or that he was. This movie is about the suspicion and the FAA investigation that, gee, you landed on the Hudson River and you had two other places all the statistics show you easily could have made it. I didn't remember that occurring. So
Yeah, I don't know.
this whole thing kind of surprised me. I found it interesting going through it. I think ultimately, and maybe this is my not being aware of the true story, but I think if you mention this and Sully and the pilot who landed on, all you think about is Hero. And so I don't remember the negative aspects, so I kind of felt like all of this drama, it's going to resolve, come on, because he's an American hero.
Right.
So in the long run, and I felt this about a lot of Eastwood's films lately, they're all tremendously well made. They all have great performances because Eastwood is a wonderful actor's director. But I didn't get the point. With many of Eastwood's latest movies, and this one in particular, yeah, what's the point? The point seemed to me to be people are good and they help each other out. There's a wonderful statistic at the end that they say, I think it was like in the 23 minutes that the plane landed, like 700 firemen, scuba men, U.S. naval people came to rescue these people and got them out, and not one of them died. And so it seems to be just a story about the human will and triumph and goodness. That's a great comment, but is it 3-act structure dramatic? I didn't think so. So this was a wonderful movie with great performances, and I didn't really get why I saw it.
It's really well made.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is really good. Everybody in it is really good. Good music. It's good shot. If I want a comfortable Hollywood movie, Eastwood delivers those great. And that is not a bad thing at all. It's just top-notch production values, good actors, and a story everybody can get into, well told. It kind of feels like this could have been a TV movie for all of the...
Yeah.
It's not about a lot. It's about that crash, which you see in bits and pieces, and then you see played out in full once, maybe twice. And then people questioning this guy's job and how he is dealing with the fact that he did the best job he could do under the circumstances. And I can equate not what he did heroically, but what his argument with an argument I have here sometimes. Sometimes when things are, I'm under a lot of pressure, I say, you have two channels broadcasting content 24/7. What's the problem? Okay. He's like, plane crashed, everybody's alive. What's the problem here? Basically, the movie is about, to me, about the heroism of doing your job and doing it well. Because he keeps saying in this movie, I was just doing my job. He's a hero, he's an American hero. He's like, I'm a pilot, I did what I was supposed to do under the circumstances. And you see that again and again. You see that with him, you see that to a lesser degree, not heroically, but just at screen time, with what the guys on that ferry do when they say, oh, there's a plane down, and what all the rescue people do. And then there's that little tribute at the end.
To jump in, I think that was, and this is Eastwood's ability to get to humanity. I remember one particular shot, that it was of, I believe, the police officers with the Coast Guard on the side there. And there was one shot when, boy, the moment they hear about this, there's a shot of them just dashing out the door. And I was just struck with, look at them going to maybe risk their lives, probably not, but just the instant effort that all of these people made. And I think you're right that was a great point. Sorry to interrupt.
No. It's just, when the country fires on all pistons, everybody is on the job, doing their job like they're supposed to do, and things get done.
Didn't this feel, for me, did you get the sense that it was almost like the weeks after 9/11?
Yeah.
I had that feeling, that watch this town, and there was one just wonderful line that somebody threw out, and I hope for all the world that this was actually said, but somebody said, isn't it great to have a happy ending to something that involves an airliner in New York? And that was a great comment.
Well, speaking of 9/11, there's some imagery in the film that's shown a couple of times.
Sure.
Is a little bit of a sphincter tightener in terms of people who remember that. I would say if you go see this in the theater, which I say you should see everything in the theater because you can focus on it better and it's pretty. Stay through the credits because you do see the actual people involved with the incident, and it's a really nice moment that they captured on film for this movie. And the audience I saw this with was all substantially older than me.
And older than me.
Even somehow older than you.
Believe that.
And it's nice to see a movie for grown-ups, as I always say, because so much that we sit through and is put in front of us is just stupid and for idiots. And this is not a stupid movie for idiots. And it's nice to see that once in a while. Probably Oscar nod for Hanks, I would imagine, maybe for Eastwood as well. Even though I think it's not...
I thought Aaron Eckhart was wonderful as the co-pilot. He had some wonderful, poignant moments in supporting his friend and himself.
And it's not that big of a deal as a movie that you're watching. Like, not a lot happens in this movie.
Right.
It's just really well made. Yeah. So that's all that we have to discuss that we saw at Keene Cinemas in the theater this week, and we thank our friends at Keene Cinemas for providing that. And I did want to note that now playing in Theater 6 is Pete's Dragon and Sausage Party, which means if you were interested in seeing either of those two films, you should see them before probably Wednesday night, because they're not going to be around next week.
But don't take your kid to see Pete's Dragon and stick around for Sausage Party.
And actually, it's funny because the little things they put over the door, there's two of them. They're
Does it
split.
say Pete's Sausage Party?
No. What's funny is that the sausage party icon is an aroused hot dog, let's say, and the Pete's Dragon is a dragon, but it is, if at a distance, it looks like the same image twice. So it was actually kind of funny for two films that are very different. Now, going on to what you may view on home video at your leisure through the device and or means of your choice, we have the next film, which features a cast of superbly heroic people doing heroic things civilly, but in a warlike manner. We have the latest in Marvel's Avengers series. It is Captain America in Civil War.
Brand new. Oh, Mrs. Brown, the way your husband likes good coffee, you better take two.
I love it when they land on one knee
Yeah,
in every superhero movie.
That's what you got to do.
I'm so tired of that. So this is, to me, the third Avengers movie.
Okay, I can see that.
The titular Captain America is certainly factors in this, and he's what sets this in motion partly. But you have all of the Avengers in this movie, and I only have seen this in the theater, and my memory after seeing it in the theater is that Captain America is in it about as much as anybody else is in it. It is an all-star team-up film where, well, what is the plot of this film? I don't remember terribly well.
It's really about that after, and we've talked about this when we were watching the Superman movies and Batman and the Avengers in particular. These heroes go in and, yeah, they save the day, but they destroy New York. All of this cataclysm occurring throughout the world. And so the United Nations has gotten together, particularly since the last Avengers movie. And if you remember the huge thing in Serbia or whatever it was, the town gets dropped and then everybody's destroyed. And then off the Avengers go home. Okay, we stopped the bad guy. Bye. So the concept is that United Nations is sick of this. They don't know whether, what happens if the Avengers get bad. It's kind of like the Superman-Batman movie coming up. So it's time to rein these guys in. And they can't be going off willy-nilly doing whatever they want. And so there's the split. This is the Civil War. That Tony Stark and a bunch of half the other Avengers say, yeah, you're right. We really need to. We're going to sign this accord, and we're not going to use our powers unless the United Nations tells us to. And Steve Rogers, Captain America, and a bunch of his buddies say, no, when I see something wrong, I'm going to do it. I'm compelled to stand up for the under guy, for the little guy, and help out where evil is occurring. And so there's that split. And all of this is as a preface to the fact that Bucky Barnes, Captain America's buddy, is out again and apparently committing world atrocities. So the UN says, okay, Iron Man, go get him. Captain America doesn't want that to happen. So it's a battle of wills and a battle of forces altogether. You're right that it's a reason to get everybody together. I remember this being in the theaters. Strangely enough, being a challenging, almost thoughtful film.
It is.
My two sons, my older son, my 23-year-old, and my 15-year-old, and I saw it. And they were firmly on one side, and I was firmly on the other. And it's an argument about, do you trust authority? Do you go along? Do you stand up for what's right or what's wrong? And it really sparked discussion. And this is the first movie, and granted, our family in particular, my family, love superhero movies. And we like to talk about films. And so, but this one was the first movie in a long time to spark such an intense discussion. So I got to give it that. I watched it again last night because Walter and I didn't have anything to do. And it was even better the second time. Initially, I was very firmly on one side, and while I understood the other, I'm not going to say which side I was on, although if you rewatch the old episode, you can find out. But it's very clear that, and a good argument does that. You can feel both sides. So this was an even better movie. I mean, out of 10, I give Captain America: Civil War a 9 for entertainment value, for thought-provoking stuff, terrific effects. You get to see all these new characters. You see the new Spider-Man. It's just sad that Aunt May is like 18. What's going on? So anyway, clearly a lead into the next Spider-Man, the next Avengers. But I thought Captain America: Civil War was terrific.
I don't have much else to say beyond that.
Okay.
I didn't love it, but I remember being entertained by it.
Okay.
It's nice to see everybody. Everybody, gets a little piece of the action in this movie. Nobody seems to be marginalized very much. It's always, I think, a really delicate balancing act to have that many characters in a movie. Too many superhero movies have too many villains in them and too many stories going on, and you're cutting from one fight to another fight to another fight, and who's doing what? This seemed to balance that pretty well. So I liked it.
You talk about balance too. It's very noticeable, and they make reference to it many times, that the Hulk is not in this and Thor is not in this. And I kept wondering, why is that? You know, they're certainly mainstays. But then I think I realized, particularly for the big climactic battle at the end,
One of
the
those
airport,
guys would win.
it's just all over with
Yeah.
if Thor comes in. So they do balance these characters off pretty evenly, and you can believe the matches go on and that nobody necessarily wins. So yeah, if you're a big Thor or a Hulk fan, you're not going to see him here. But yeah, so anyway, you're right.
So, speaking of movies with the letter C in them.
Yes, okay, we can talk about that. C as in, I don't know, child toy or something like that. We're back with those silly paranormal investigators, going actually back to one of their original cases. Ed and Lorraine Warren travel over to England to investigate what, in reality, turned out to be the Enfield poltergeist case. They're going to have to take a look because not only has it been going on beforehand, but over in England, they're conjuring too.
Looking people in the whole world.
So here's the question.
That people look different every time you make them.
So you know my backstory. I used to, and I still am a paranormal investigator with TAPS, New England Paranormal and those things. So this instantly kind of draws me in. I like to imagine, ooh, I'm investigating this. It's so overblown and so over the top. I like the two actors a lot. They're good actors, and I like the way they bring these investigators to life. But the Conjurings are really kind of just pulling out stops that have already been pulled out. I think we've seen this a lot of times, and while it was scary, it was unbelievable. You know, like I'm going to believe in ghosts and stuff like that anyway. But it was unbelievably scary, just so over the top CG stuff that I wasn't crazy on second viewing of The Conjuring 2.
I didn't like the first Conjuring at all. I figured, why don't we just watch The Exorcist, because that one's good.
Right.
And then this one is the same thing. It seems really cheesy and heavy-handed to me. I like that it's set in the past because I'm comfortable with that setting. Those are the movies I watched as a kid growing up from the era this is set in. It opens with the Amityville case, but it's done in such an over-the-top, cheesy way. It just isn't scary. I don't find loud noises scary. I don't find CGI scary. I don't find action sequences scary, and that's a lot of what this leans on. And a lot of the stuff that's supposed to be creepy, it just I wanted to laugh at it.
If you're a fan of these things,
they're fairly well shot. That's the annoying part of it.
But if you're a fan of paranormal stuff and you're familiar with, they do start right out with the Amityville case, and everybody knows the Amityville case was by the people who perpetrated it. They made it up.
It was a I know.
So how do you start with a movie with something? So anyway,
they say they made it up.
Yeah,
whatever.
They're just faking it.
Speaking of hogwash,
yes,
I didn't like the first one of these movies we're going to talk about either.
Okay.
So up next, we have the sequel to a wildly popular film about a group of magicians who pull off a big ol' heist, or thwart a heist, or something like that. Anyway, this one is the sequel to Now You See Me, cleverly titled Now You See Me Too.
Take magic cards. You don't have to be a magician to perform all kinds of amazing card tricks because it works by itself.
So I didn't see it. What'd you think?
My big problem with the first one, which I enjoyed, but was that the magic tricks that they all perform, most of them were done through editing. And so we're sitting there watching it, and my real complaint was always, have it be an objective camera again, and somehow, even if it is CG, make it look like they're actually doing something and I'm the observer. And this one did that a lot more. So I enjoyed the magic-y part of this a lot more. Daniel Radcliffe is in this. He's actually the one who's holding them hostage because he's got something over their heads and they have to perpetrate a bunch of crimes for him. And so he's a lot of fun. Morgan Freeman is back. So it's all the old same faces doing the same old thing. In the long run, I think if you like the first one, I think you'll like this one even as much, if not more, because again, for me, the movie trickery has been taken out of a lot of it. So I thought Now You See Me Too, if you liked the first one, was even a good deal more fun. So I enjoyed it.
And currency is involved in that film, correct?
Yes, quite a bit.
How about the next film we're going to discuss?
That's a good question. I have to take a look at what we're... Oh, yes. We're jumping around here a little bit because we're running out of time. So I'll speak quickly, and I'll say George Clooney is a TV host, and he's going to tell you exactly how to spend your money. But if you end up spending it the way he says, you might have some problems. And if you want to do that, you can take over the studio and hold everybody hostage because he's really turned into a money monster.
Bear Masher has a bear trap, spring-loaded catapult, and battering ram.
Again, another movie from a director, this time Jodie Foster, who is primarily about performances and working with actors. You've got 3 terrific actors in this. Julia Roberts is kind of wasted because she doesn't have a lot to do. Clooney is on all the time. He's really good. There are moments when he looks like this scared little baby, and that's actually some kind of performances for him. I don't remember the guy who takes them hostage. I don't remember his name, but he's terrific.
That might be Jack O'Connell.
I bet it's Jack O'Connell. Very good, thank you. But Foster is really going to become, I think, one of our best directors. She really knows her stuff. This is a really taut little thriller. I love movies that take place in that single kind of location, and this mostly does. It's in their studio. So if you like Clooney, if you like Roberts, if you like O'Connell, even though you can't, you recognize him but don't know his name, or just tight, interesting thrillers. This moves along pretty quickly. I thought Money Monster was really good.
As did I. Maybe a little less than you, but I still thought it was efficient. It reminded me of Network in many ways.
Yes, absolutely.
So up next, we have everybody's favorite, and by everybody I mean at least me, segment of the program. It is the Arrow Video Corner, where we discuss a release from the U.S. branch of Arrow. Oh, hey, there we are. The U.S. branch of Arrow Video here in the U.S. Did I say U.S. enough yet? Here we have a wild post-apocalyptic semi-comedy action thriller bizarro movie from Australian action director Brian Trenchard Smith. And where are you going to go when the streets are ruled by crime and Mad Max type guys, and you just want to see a movie with your best gal? Well, my friend, you go to the Dead End Drive-In.
When Chuck Cooper goes north, he's learned not to bother to ask for grits.
They give away the money shot in the trailer.
Yeah, that's how I drive to get in,
So Brian Trenchard Smith, who's known for a lot of Australian action films predominantly, did this. Less of an action movie than anything else, really. As we were talking during the clip, it's really kind of like Mad Max in a parking lot.
Sort of, yeah.
Like you could put this between the first Mad Max and Road Warrior. Like Mad Max, things are starting to go bad. This movie, things are bad. And the third movie, things are just beyond bad. So basically the story is, like I said, this guy, it's a future that's sort of post-apocalyptic where gangs rule the streets and kidnap people and everything, but people kind of still live independently. And this guy takes his girlfriend to the drive-in and finds out it's basically a prison and he can't get out. So it then focuses on all the little weird gangs and subcultures that by day, fight and war and control the drive-in, and at night they watch Brian Trenchard Smith action movies on the big screen. So I didn't love it. A lot of it's kind of goofy. A lot of it's just these weirdo, goofy punk type characters. When there is action, it's really well done. The shot they give away in the trailer at the end is really cool.
Yeah, but
it's goofy. It's Arrow Video, so again, to sing their praises, the transfer looks amazing.
Yeah.
They're really copious extras with all kinds of interviews, a commentary by the director. The best thing for me about this disc, there's like a 20-minute short that was made for Australian TV about a fire in a hospital. It's like a safety, why you shouldn't throw your cigarette butt down a laundry chute in a hospital. And it plays like a horror movie. It's got guys on fire jumping out of windows. It's got, it's really edgy and disturbing. So to me, this whole disc is worth it for that one short, very, very gruesome film. But overall, if you're a fan of this movie, this is going to be the best version you've ever seen of it. If you've never seen it, I don't know necessarily that I would recommend it unless you just want to see a goofy Australian mid-'80s movie with a car flying through the air at the end.
I thought I was struck by it being very disjointed. I couldn't. It felt like a bunch of people getting together and, okay, we've got a couple of different locations. What can we possibly throw together with these different locations? And so it was just kind of jumbled to me. It did feel at times, comedic, intentionally so. Mm-hmm. But then the dramatic parts where they're all at war with each other, it just didn't jive. So it didn't have a real through line for me. Once again, it looks so spectacular. Not only is the transfer beautiful, but the cinematographer did a great job shooting this. So it looks wonderful. I think it lacks for me, a real cohesive kind of storyline, just bringing it all together. And I don't need anything super intelligent. The early Mad Maxes and stuff were just about a post-apocalypse. But more solid performances would have helped me out. So of the post-apocalyptic things I've seen, this is sort of a bit down there. But it kept me going for the hour and a half or so that it was.
Cool. So that's all we have to discuss. Sadly, we don't have time for me to tell you about the other 13 movies I saw this weekend. But there's always time next week because it won't be a catch-up show next week.
That's true.
It'll be probably 2 in the theater, probably 4 or 5 or more on video. We have some more treats like Dead End Drive-In to talk about next week. So until then, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are the Cinemaniacs.
Cinemaniacs.